Hi, everybody. This is Jim Haviland. So, continue our lecture on the structure that comes from the tool that we use for the org chart. We want to go into this notion of we just covered the core functions. We've got some core functions there: sales and marketing, operations, finance, and that's you're going to be your core functions, by the way. But these are things we have to have figured out in the organization to get up to scalable stage. So, just know that if you don't have those things clearly defined in your organization yet, it's coming. So we have one on top of that. We have one called the operator. This may be in the beginning. This is probably the founder. Whoever started the organization probably is the one that is in charge of this by default. Whether they're good at it or not, they end up being the person there. But we really want someone who can operationalize the organization. That's really the point. Someone that can help conduct the other parts, make sure they're all working well together. Someone that's really great, not only leader, but also a mentor coach type person, someone that can help make sure everyone's got what they need, is focused on that sort of thing, loves the details. We want to have someone like that in that seat. And that almost never happens, by the way. We almost always start with someone that's more into the vision of the organization, someone that's more about the why of the organization than about the what, the how. And we need to have someone also focus on those things. You can't just be all about the why and expect things to happen great. Maybe they do, but I wouldn't depend on that. But one of the big discoveries of the last 20, 30 years or so is that for the most part, organizations that really succeed very, very well, and this is actually something that kind of comes out of the good to great research, is that there's more than one person in the organization who's leading. And this is a great pairing of someone that is really about vision and the why and focused on where we're going, and someone that's also focused on getting things done. That pairing is absolutely magical when you actually have it. It doesn't happen as often as we might like. People sometimes will pretend that they can latch somebody on later on but the very beginning you want to have someone who's really what Simon Sinek calls the chief vision officer, or in EOS, and what Gino Wickman gave us, the notion of the visionary. He didn't create the term visionary. That's been around for a while, but the notion of it being a particular type of seat, that I think that is probably one of his innovations. And this is how we kind of draw that, by the way. This is also a Gino Wickman drawing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like this. I've got some clients that are comfortable with this. A lot of people are not comfortable with this notion of the visionaries on tippity top, and then everyone else, they say, oh, everyone's reporting to that. That's not the point of the chart. The chart's never about that. You just understand the visionary has no one directly reporting to the visionary. The visionary is working with the operator. I think in EOS, they call that the integrator. Those people are working, the VI pair, those people are working together very closely, but there are no direct reports to the visionary because they're going to be a pretty substandard boss, as it turns out. And they also don't take rocks, by the way. There's certain things they're just not going to be good at. Let's stop asking them to do those things. And like we talk about with strengths finders, let's let them lean into their strengths. What are the things they're really, really good at? And let's make sure they're spending time, energy, and focus on that. And let somebody else, that operator, that second in command, that COO person, that integrator role, really take care of the day-to-day, the niggly bits, the details that keep everybody else running, and while the visionary focuses on where we're headed. And most organizations, by the way, don't start out this way, but if you're a visionary, you should be trying to find your operator, your integrator, your second in command, that person that wants to follow you around and make something good out of your crazy notions. That is the job that person enjoys to do. Find someone like that, and your chances of being successful are really 10x easily. And the difference between these two, the operator really creates clarity. That's what they're going to do every day. They're going to take whatever the visionary says and turn it into something that everyone understands. They're great at driving people, and then driving not like, hey, cracking the whip, but saying, hey, you can go do this. You got this much time. That's all you got. Just focus on this. So they're really helping people give clarity about what needs to happen right now, that focus and driving outcomes, as opposed to the visionary stuff, which is more about where we want to be in the ultimate. They're great program managers. They're very logical. They're very focused, and they're accountable. They love to be, hey, I'm the one that's going to get it done, man. And you should cheer them for that. They're great with follow through. We talked about Colby and how we use that to profile people. This person wants to be very high in the follow through part of it. There's someone that really wants to, hey, I've been saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it all the way till done. I know what done looks like, and I'm going to keep on it until that happens. And they're great at moving obstacles and barriers. So even if that's not how they start out, they realize and they get joy from getting rid of the things that would get in the way of other people executing. And that's an amazing thing to have. Whereas visionaries are much more likely to have lots of ideas. The joke we tell is that they come into every meeting with 20 ideas. Out of those 20, one is actually a really good idea. The rest of them are kind of crazy. That's one of the reasons we have, and we talk about long-term planning, we have the long-term issues list, and we have these things. We rate them five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ones for the not yet, put those things in there, make the visionary feel like, oh yeah, they captured it, they got my notes, great. We may never get back to it, or the visionary's going to go, whose crazy idea was that, and get rid of it later on. But one of the things that the operator has to do is to tease out what that great idea is out of those 20, to believe that there is going to be a 1 in 20 that's going to be great, and the visionary's just going to keep having them. So don't tell them to stop. Don't tell her to stop. Visionaries tend to be a little more creative. They're great problem solvers. They can see things that no one else can see in things. That's one of the benefits of there. They usually enjoy the work around building great culture. They can see the impact of that a little bit easier than the operator, because they're seeing things that, from above. They have a better, they're more naturally going to see things from the far away, that as opposed to getting into the details. And they're great with big relationships. The people like them. They tend to have a lot of riz, they have charisma, and that's why they make initially the salespeople, because they're selling themselves, or selling their dream, not selling the product, not selling the service. So people aren't actually buying the service, they're buying the visionary. And that's, you got to get out of that. And that's not scalable, because the visionary's not the one delivering, one. And two, you want people to believe in the real thing. You want people to show up wanting the thing you've got. And keeping the visionary as the primary driver of sales and marketing is not a good way to do it. And they have a great pulse on the market. Or they enjoy that. They enjoy understanding the marketplace and spending time on that and trying to find that blue ocean strategy through everything that's going on. And they're a little bit more emotional. They're less likely to see the pure analytical, and more likely to see the emotional content and things that are going on. So, but the real key, the real unlock, is having both of these kinds of personalities in the organization. And some people, there's actually a test that EOS offers, where you can see whether you're a visionary or operator, or integrator, which your stronger tendencies are. And all of the profiling mechanisms give you some insight as to whether or not you're going to be more likely to be one or the other. But finding that balance is in the org, whether it's in different people, or it's in yourself, or it's in a couple of people. That's really the unlock here. So great. So let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the next set of things, which is really how you're going to facilitate this on a regular basis. How are you going to actually implement building an org chart in your organization with everything we've talked about?